You're watching Barnstable this morning. Joining me now is Sherianna Boyle, and you are an author as well as a teacher. I want to talk to you a little bit first about your books because you've been writing for a while now. You started out self-publishing. What was your first book?
My first book was Powered by Me for Educators, so it's right here. And this book really comes from the perspective of a school psychologist, because that's really what my training is in, or my original license. And so when I left the school system and to have my children, I started to delve into the mind-body field and get all sorts of training in that. And part of the reason I honestly did that was because I was running on adrenaline in the school system. And when everything came to a halt, I actually went through quite a bit of depression. And I hadn't realized how much I had tapped myself out when I was working in public schools. So as a result, I went on medication like a lot of people do, and I ended up, that wasn't a great fit for me, to the point where they tried, I think, maybe 5 or 6 medications in 1 year. And then I got the phone call that said, well, guess what? Now your liver levels are off, and now we need to look at that. And I was like, okay, this is not the plan for me. So I went on the path of the mind-body field, and never even thinking that I would be writing about this or teaching it. And I realized how effective it is and how much it changed my life. And as a result, I thought, okay, well, I had always hoped to go back to the schools, because I really do have a love for education. I have a love for children, and I felt like the school was a second family to me. And I thought, if I go back, I'm not going to do it the same way. And so it was as if a picture started to form in my mind. And I was telling you before the interview that what got me writing was really my leave of absence with my third daughter. She napped so well that I thought, okay, I think it's time to kind of jot some ideas down of what I'm thinking. And it just kept coming out, all these ways that we could maybe look at things differently and how we can handle the stress in the schools. And so I wrote Powered by Me and self-published it in 2012. I had gone out there a little bit and started promoting it. And then I was approached by a publisher that asked me to write the Everything Parents Guide for Overcoming Childhood Anxiety, which is this book. And
something a lot of parents struggle with, I'm sure, out there, and a huge issue.
Huge.
And you have such a connection to children and anxiety from both a personal level and professional level.
Yes.
That really must have helped writing the book.
It did. I mean, I was thrilled. I said, absolutely, I'll write it. And then, of course, the timelines with the publishing world, I had 5 weeks to write that book. And
wow.
Yes. But I did it, and it came out great, and I just thought, wow, okay, the techniques, it just opened up even more pathways and more research that started coming in. And while I was writing that book, I ended up getting a job at Cape Cod Community College teaching psychology. So it was just a perfect match, because now I was back in the schools, which is where I love to be, and able to teach this in my psychology classes. And then that opened up all these new doorways, because not only was I writing about it, but I was actually applying it with my students in the classroom and really seeing such growth in them. And it just gave me a whole new appreciation for our youth and the generations that are coming forward. It really renewed me in many, many ways. And then from there, of course, I wrote The 4 Gifts of Anxiety, and I've written 2 more since these. So I have Choosing Love coming out in December, and then I've rewritten, the publisher has an updated version of a book for anxiety for children on more mindful approaches, so that's coming out as well.
And that seems to be the way that so many people are encouraging everyone to really find a peace within themselves, is that mindfulness. Talk to me a little bit about the 4 gifts of anxiety, because when I think of anxiety, I don't necessarily view it as a gift.
Yes. Well, it's not a gift. The symptoms themselves, I always say, are not gifts, okay? It's when you move through them, then you receive many, 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 many gifts, and there's an abundance of them. And so what the 4 gifts of anxiety does in the first half of the book is it really helps educate people about what our emotions are, what they're made up of, the new science behind them, and that we really can influence them and we can move them through our body. And as that occurs, it really opens up doorways and possibilities, and you gain this ability to receive. I see anxiety as more of people haven't really learned how to receive. They've learned how to give really well, and as a result, in some ways we've depleted ourselves. And I was just talking about this with my yoga class this morning when I was explaining something, that some of the tools that you use to fill up your cup, if your cup has holes in it, it's like you keep filling it up, but yet some of it's draining out. And I feel that's some of what the pattern is with people. It's not that they're not trying, right, to overcome anxiety or move through it. It's just that they're doing it with energy that's leaking from them. And it's kind of a big concept, but I describe it in the book. And then I also describe 4 gifts that I've received from moving through the symptoms, and I believe a lot of people can identify with those gifts.
You mentioned just now your yoga class. You also teach yoga as well.
I do.
Do you feel that yoga can really help someone who may be suffering from anxiety and stress?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's a really absolutely, but I want to be clear that yoga doesn't always have to be what we imagine it to be, and I think sometimes we have to be mindful of the images, just like with all media images, that we see these people on these magazines and they look beautiful and they have these, really twisty bodies, and just keeping that in perspective, right? That yoga is really about a connection to your mind, body, and your spirit. And I believe we're all mindful. And I believe that some of what's happened is we've separated it. I'm mindful, you're not mindful. And rather than take a look, separating it, I encourage us to look at how we're already being mindful every day. And I believe everybody's being mindful. We're just not recognizing it. And we're judging each other. Oh, you go to yoga? Oh, you're mindful, right? Not necessarily true. I think it's a great way to learn skills, to practice, to have a discipline, but I don't believe it's the only way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting to hear that perspective.
Yeah.
Another thing that I was really intrigued by is you've recently started a Facebook group. It's called Choosing Love Community.
Yes.
And every day people are sending messages of love through the Facebook group.
Yes.
I have a feeling this is related to your book that's coming out in December.
Yes, yes.
So talk to me a little bit about what made you want to start the Facebook group, what you hope to see happen with that Facebook group.
I'm going to be honest with you. I was having a hard time with social media. And I found that I understand as an author, it's part of my role, it's part of my job. If you're a business owner, social media is a wonderful tool. And I just, I was having a hard time chiming in to some of the discussions and putting myself out there. And I had this idea one day about a community of people. And I thought, okay, well, that's a good idea. And then I kept putting it in the back of my head. And then it kept coming back, Choosing Love Community. Okay, all right, I'll get to that. And then finally, I actually created the page a couple months ago. And I did it with Jason Peterson, who helps me with my website. And I said, Jason, let's create the page. In the fall, I will launch this page because everybody's probably a little busy right now, right? I'm doing that, you know. I don't want to bother anybody.
Right.
You know how we do that to ourselves.
It's summer. Everyone's busy.
Everyone's busy. They're not going to want to bother with another Facebook page. So lo and behold, I said to Jason, I emailed him and said, Jason, I really want to start getting ready for launch. And then he emails me and he says, Sherry, I hope it's okay, but I launched it today. And I said, well, okay then, here we go. So I started posting, and it's really been unbelievable, the response and the amount of people that have asked to join the group, because I really wait for people to ask at this point. And I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled at how it's evolving. I'm thrilled with the content. I'm thrilled with the integrity. And I look at my role as really just maintaining that intention of how we choose love every day and to keep the ball rolling, but it's really the community that is running the show.
Well, it's interesting too, I'm a member of the group myself, and I've seen comments being posted, and it's really interesting because sometimes people say, hey, I'm struggling with this. I'm having trouble with choosing love today.
Right.
And that's really interesting because really, and then there are people who are like, this is how I chose love today. And there are little things, but then bigger issues as well that get shared.
Absolutely.
Do you think in a way, seeing all of the negative things sometimes that could be posted on Facebook was part of why you wanted to do that?
Yes, yeah. And I just, there was just things that I found myself, and I talk about it in Choosing Love. I talk about to really start to look at, well, where's the energy coming from? And there have been many times where I am incredibly proud of my children, incredibly. And I'm not saying I'm not going to put this out there on Facebook. There will be times. But I had to really look at, why am I posting this? And where is this coming from in me? And more often than not, it was more about me than them. And I decided that I was going to take a step back from that. And I was really only going to post things about my family or what we were doing, and when it really was connected to love. And then Choosing Love was created, and that's really where my focus and attention is.
Well, I just want to tell everyone out there, if they're interested in the Facebook group Choosing Love, you just have to search on Facebook Choosing Love Community. It'll come right up. Yeah. And then before we let you go, I want to know, where can we find your books if anyone is interested?
Let's see. Well, the books, like I said, Choosing Love is coming out in December, and there's also another conscious parenting guide for overcoming childhood anxiety, which will come out. I don't even have a date yet. But you can find the books at Barnes & Noble. You can find the books in your local bookshop. You can find your books on my website, which is sheriannaboyle.com. You can find the books on Amazon. You can find them anywhere, basically.
Well,
so
great.
They're available.
Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all about what you do. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Sherianna Boyle is an author as well as teacher for Barnstable This Morning. I'm Sarah Mantle.